66 gives municipalities the power to override existing legislation that the government sees as impeding economic development that supports jobs through an open for business planning bylaw without conforming to the Clean Water Act, which was adopted after the Walkerton tragedy, without conforming to the Oak Ridges Moraine Act, without conforming to the Greenbelt Act, the Lake Simcoe Protection Act, the Places to Grow Act. Most of the legislation that they are rolling back is in place to protect the health and safety of people of Ontario and would allow municipalities to pass a bylaw to place employment uses and secondary uses such as residential and commercial anywhere in Ontario, and to do so without notifying the public. Many of you, Mayor Mrakas, Wendy Gartner, John Gallo, and Rachel, were elected on platforms of transparency and open engagement of the public in setting priorities and involvement in Council's decision-making process. Rachel, I really like your comment. Transparency is because the public deserves to know. These open for business bylaws are intended to fast-track development proposals that are primarily, but not limited to, employment uses. But the bar is very low. The development application needs only to provide for 50 jobs in order to qualify for the use of the bylaw in most of the province. Having provided for jobs, the development application can then include industrial, residential, and commercial uses. And since development applications approved under the Open for Business bylaw sidestep public consultation and all of the environmental regulations listed above, it could lead to land uses that contaminate our water and destroy our protected green spaces. Don't let this happen here in Aurora. Mayor Mrakas, Wendy, John, Rachel, and Sandra all want to protect our green space and support the serious issue of climate change and protecting our earth for many generations to come. To restore Aurora's commitment to environmental protection, John, and make sure environmentally sensitive lands remain protected forever. Employment uses could be built anywhere in the province without following a public planning process. Yet the government itself has noted that there is an excess of economic development land in cities across the GGA and is consulting on whether the conversion of that land should be permitted for other uses. The Neptus Foundation report clearly shows why we need to plan for regional economic development, not localized development. In May of 2001, Mike Harris's conservatives established a 6-month moratorium. Is that 1 minute? 1 minute. Okay, so the City of Burlington has already made a statement saying they would not use this regulation if it is passed by the legislature. And I encourage Ontario Council to speak out and sign on with Burlington. The mayors of both Hamilton and Burlington say they're not interested in new open for business legislation if it means sacrificing land in Ontario's Greenbelt. They don't want to endanger the 2 million acres of green space protected by the province's Greenbelt legislation and don't want any more urban sprawl. The Greenbelt and Ontario's natural heritage are our strongest assets for growing food, preventing flooding, ensuring clean water, and providing habitat for wildlife. Bill 66 rolls back critical environmental legislation. Please continue to stand up for 30 years of environmental action and healthy communities and be the first municipality to pass a motion to let the province know that Ontario Aurora Council will not enact the bylaw open for business.
To find out how Bill C-66 would affect Aurora, based on the delegate Susan Walmer. We can get a report on the effect of how it would be in Aurora.
Would you like some kind of response now, or just from...
If something could be prepared and presented to us so we can understand what that would mean.
So, Mr. Chair, our intention was to bring something to Council in January. The House won't sit till February, so this won't be dealt with by the province till at least mid-February. So we figured this, with all that's going on between now and the end of the year, we'd do something in January to give you an update.
Chatter about Bill 66. So I just wanted to say that I'm actually going to join my colleagues from Hamilton and Burlington and say that I'm absolutely opposed to the new open for business legislation. I think that this town, when we look at development within our community, I've always said but when many applications come before us, it's about having appropriate development, smart growth, and I think that this bill speaks to the opposite. I think that allowing for bypassing of many of the acts, including the Clean Water Act, the Greenbelt Act, is something that I think that Aurora residents and myself are not interested in. So while we appreciate the work by Premier Ford and the province, I say from my point of view, and hopefully from Aurora, no thank you. And so next week I will be bringing a motion forward, and I will be asking for my council colleagues to waive procedure to allow it to come to the floor so we can oppose this bill and ask the province to not go forward with this bill. So hopefully next week council will indulge my motion and we can speak to it. So that's all I have.
Mr. Nadrasny, do you know what's going on with the OMB reform and the municipal tribunals? Has anything come across your table from the province in terms of what that might look like?
Nothing formal. There's lots of rumors about that Mr. Ford has some changes in mind. I've heard everything from going back to the old system to some fine-tuning of the current new system. I do know that there's a couple of issues that have gone before the new panel and are being challenged, so there's a number of things that are being sorted out procedurally. So I think certainly on some more difficult cases, I know some of them are tied up in court and waiting for some jurisdictional rulings. So the actual work of the existing group is even not progressing as quickly as it is intended to with the new legislation. So I think we're really in a wait-and-see pattern to see what Mr. Ford wants to do next with it. But it's going slow. I can summarize that.
Sure, I just want to make a quick comment about what was brought up in regards to the OMB. I do hope that the province does not go down that road, because I can say with much certainty that if they do go down that road and try to make some changes and bring back the old ways of the OMB, I can tell you right now that Aurora will be at the forefront, as we were instrumental in getting those changes. We will be back at the forefront, and the province will definitely have a fight on their hands.
Yeah.